we turn our attention to the top of the odds board in the Coastal Division. And we will begin with the Miami Hurricanes with an over-under win total of 8.5, minus 115 to the over, minus 115 to the under at Caesars Sportsbook. The non-conference, it's all right at the beginning of the schedule. Bethune-Cookman, Southern Miss, Middle Tennessee. Hey, there we go. The Mario Cristobal era is going to get started. But boy, we will learn a lot about what the Hurricanes are going to be in 2022 as they've got a road trip to College Station to play Texas A&M in week 3. You take a look at the conference schedule. Of course, we know they'll be drawing Florida State from the Atlantic Division. They also have a game at Clemson in late November. In division play, you're going to have North Carolina coming to town. You're going to have Duke coming to town. You have to go Pittsburgh coming to town at the end of the season, going on the road to Virginia, going on the road to Virginia Tech. Tyler Van Dyke, reigning ACC Rookie of the Year. You've got a couple of players on the defensive side that I have mentioned a lot, that I liked a lot. Leonard Taylor on the defensive line, James Williams in the secondary. They've done some work on in the transfer portal to try to solidify that defense as well. Josh Gaddis is your high-profile offensive coordinator hire. Kevin Steele comes in to lead the defense. This is a Miami team that is expected to be near the top of the division, but the schedule that includes that Texas A&M and the Clemson game are, I think, why we have the win total at 8.5. So, Tom, where are you at with the Canes?
I mean, you know where I'm at with the Canes. Anybody who's been following the show all offseason knows where I'm at with the Canes. I'm on the over. Now, it's not as emphatic as an over as you might think. Like I've tried to rein in my excitement for this team all off season because I don't want it to be another year where it's like it happens with Texas and Miami, where you just kind of get excited thinking, all right, this is the year they're going to be back. They're going to be back. And then they're never quite back. But I don't want to say Miami is back, but I do think that looking at the rest of this division, I trust this team to be the best team in the division, not a team that's going to be competing for a playoff berth, not a team that I think has a really great shot at winning the ACC, but a team that I think is going to win this division more often than anybody else. And I look at the schedule. You mentioned the non-con. I think 3-1 is a pretty clear start to this one with Bethune, Southern Miss, and Middle Tennessee. Those are going to be wins. The road trip to Texas A&M, difficult time seeing them winning that game, but we've talked about it. I'm kind of in the area right now where I feel like I'm going to take Miami to cover that week. I don't know if they're going to win, but I'm definitely going to take them to cover. And then you get into the conference, like, I think they have the best quarterback in the conference. And we have talked a lot. You know, Danny's always calling it the conference of quarterbacks. And there are a lot of good quarterbacks in the ACC. And I think Miami's got the best of the bunch in Van Dyke. But I do have some concerns that, you know, and I've voiced them before with Mario Cristobal, the way we saw him treat Justin Herbert and just the way that Mario prefers to play in general. Like, it's more of the complementary football kind of style where he wants to lead with his defense and then make sure the offense is going to score points, but they're not going to do anything stupid. They're not going to make mistakes. They're not going to take unnecessary risks. And I feel like when I've got Tyler Van Dyke, I could take some unnecessary risks because he's one of the few quarterbacks, I think, in the country capable of making some of the throws. But I think that overall, you look at it, this is a very talented team. I think that they're going to be well coached. I think that they are one of the stronger teams in this division. And I look at the schedule and the way it breaks down. They get North Carolina at home. Virginia Tech on the road is going to be tough. Virginia on the road, I'm not that worried about because I just, you know, spoiler alert, I'm not sure how high I am on the Who's this year. Georgia Tech on the road, come on. I mean, who knows if he's going to be coaching them by that point. And then you finish with Clemson on the road before you get pitted home. And I don't think they need to win that Clemson game to win the division. And so I just look at them. I think that 9-3 is more likely than 8-4. I think 10-2 is more likely than 7-5, and so on. Everything I have points this team to the over. And while I don't think it's going to be one of my locks at the end of all this for the win totals, I do think that this is a team that's going to win 9 games.
There are two things that can happen at the same time. Number one, I can sit here and lay out my argument for and my prediction of Miami going over. And number two, I can also give you an it would be hilarious situation. Because the it would be hilarious is where it falls into like Miami can't wash the Miami off. Because as I have laid out the Miami schedule, you mentioned it, Bethune-Cookman, I got it as a dub. Southern Miss, I got it as a dub. You go take a loss at Texas A&M, but it's one that really builds confidence in what Mario Cristobal is doing and what this team can accomplish. Come back home, you beat Middle Tennessee. You beat UNC. You go on the road, you beat Virginia Tech, Duke, Virginia. You win that rivalry game against Florida State. You go into Atlanta, as you mentioned, who knows where even the heart of that team is. And then I could see them just losing both of them. I could see in the same way that in the 2017 season, Miami reached, I think, number 2 in the college football playoff rankings with like a 10-0 start after beating Notre Dame at home and just going on that long run, great defense, sort of piecing together the offense with duct tape. But then at the end of the year, they lost their final 2 games and maybe even lost their final 3 games if you include the bowl game against Wisconsin as well. And so that's where the Miami at Clemson, next to last game of the season, they're both way up in the rankings and everything's sky high, because I'll tell you what, the hardest thing for Miami to do is going to be to turn around from that Clemson game and be able to play its best football against a Pitt team that is going to be more than happy to make that game uncomfortable and is going to be very well prepared to turn that thing into a rock fight. So that end is so challenging. But yet, even as I have like broken all this down and run all the chipolytics for the 8.5, I'm absolutely still going over. I think there is a gap. And even as I'm predicting a loss to Pitt, I think there's just a gap right now between Miami and the rest of the division that other teams are not going to be able to close that gap. And I think that Mario Cristobal, while the offense is not going to be able to put up the same numbers that it did last year, at least in terms of the passing game and Tyler Van Dyke, Bud Elliott, it was sitting next to me at the ACC football kickoff. And like, you know, Tom, I got to see Bud's spreadsheets. There are so many tabs open at once. I have no idea what kind
like
of
a light glowing out of them.
But on the spreadsheets, you know, I could see the pass targets that are gone. And he pulled up Miami's, and we were sitting next to him. He's like, where? Who are these balls going to be going to? Like the number of wide receivers and passing options, something that it's going to be like very concerning. And so I think that we can potentially see Miami do a little like Oregon thing where they're just going to win at the line of scrimmage. They got an NFL quarterback, and you know he's going to be able to make the throws you need to make, take a couple of risks. But the Hurricanes, I believe, will win the Coastal Division. The Hurricanes, I believe, will go 9-3.
Well, you mentioned that game at the end of the year where you think Pitt will be comfortable, you know, rock fighting it up. I think that's the one thing that's going to be different about Miami this year. I don't think this is a team that has been equipped or prepared to play in those kind of games in recent seasons under the most recent coaching staffs. I think Mario will be more than happy to get down in the mud and get in a rock fight with you. I think that's what Mario's going to want to do. So when it comes to those, like, I think they can out-talent teams a lot. And I think when they get into those kind of situations, I think that's kind of the mentality that Mario likes. I think they're going to be more ready for those games than they have been in the recent years.
And in terms of the Coastal Division, as this will be our last year of the Coastal Division. It's really been a beautiful thing. I mean, 7 different division winners in 7 years. You know, from Duke in 2013 to Virginia in 2019, and all daggum 7 of them in between. It really has been magical. So many 5-3 tiebreakers that all came down in the month of November. But I also want to point this out: the media did predict Miami to win the ACC Coastal Division at the media days. This is a reminder from Josh Graham on the radio in the Triad. He said the media has incorrectly picked the Coastal champion 8 of the 11 times out of the last 11 times in the preseason poll, and Miami has been picked to win the Coastal 6 times and has only converted on it once. So history can be made if the Hurricanes picked to win the Coastal cannot have it break like it has 4 out of the last 5 times where they don't do it. And if they do convert after being picked to win the Coastal for only the 2nd time at ACC Media Days.
Wasn't there something similar though with like the SEC for a few years there? Like the media couldn't pick the winner of the league either.
Was it the entire league or was it the West?
I can't remember. It was something like that, but it was either the West or the league, and they got it wrong for like 6 or 7 straight seasons. And I think the lesson here is not so much that football is unpredictable as much as the media is very dumb.
No. The media is lazy. Not
True.
Necessarily.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. Yes.
Because if I remember the stretch included like Auburn wins it in 13, Auburn wins it in 17, LSU wins it in 19. And I would bet that most of those years was just Bama.
Well, because here's the one thing, like, if for listeners and viewers, here's a peek behind the curtains when like those things come out, like, like you said, you released the media preseason polls, like this team's going to finish first, and it had 45 first place votes. Those are sheets of paper generally given to us, like when we show up at the event. They're like, quick, fill this out. So there's usually not a whole lot of thought. Now, some people go through a whole bunch of prep for that kind of thing, but I would say 80% of the voters are just like, all right, yeah, this team's going to finish first, this one's second. So don't put too much stock into that.
And don't forget the groupthink that happens at the hospitality section. At nighttime, because that's just packs of sports writers just like looking at you. Who you got? 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 Well, I got this. I got this. And then all of a sudden, everybody's on the same page, and oftentimes it is the wrong page. Yes, chat does mention even Georgia Tech got a vote to win the Coastal. Anything, absolutely anything can happen.
They let anybody vote.